If you've been watching Gamingtrend recently, then you know that we've covered the VelocityOne flight yoke, the VelocityOne rudder pedals, and the VelocityOne hoe toss, all from Turtle Beach. Well, there's one other piece of immersion tech that I absolutely had to get my hands on, and that is the VelocityOne Race. The VelocityOne Race is a PC and Xbox force feedback steering wheel with a laundry list of cool features. I'm Ron Burke, editor-in-chief for Gamingtrend.com. Let's unbox this massive box and see what's inside. If you gave me 25 attempts and I watched this entire video in reverse, I don't think I could get this back in the bags and back in that box. It's just not gonna happen. But the next thing we gotta do is get this all assembled. Just like the VelocityOne hoe toss and the VelocityOne yoke, there's a lot of customization and you're gonna need a cheat sheet to be able to do that. So they've included exactly that. It walks you through what all of the buttons do, as well as how to assemble a device and connect it to either your PC or your Xbox Series X or S. Despite the inclusion of a number of screws, there's actually not a lot of assembly to do here. These 7 screws actually go on the bottom of this set of pedals or on the bottom of this base unit to be able to mount it to a chair. Turtle Beach does have a chair system for their flight simulators that also works for their driving simulators. So if you happen to have one of those or something similar, you can mount these directly to that so they stay sturdy. There's also 2 more screws here, and we're gonna find out what those do in just a second. Unlike a lot of other racing wheels out there, the VelocityOne Race also has this control unit. Now this has programmable dials and buttons down here, as well as toggle switches and K drive, we'll get back to that in a minute, engine start, and then this master arm switch, which you can see all of that right there. These are detented, so you have a tactile feel, and obviously these have 3 throw positions, and then that master switch goes like that. That's what the 2 screws are for. They're going to slide into this base unit like that, and then there'll be 2 screws to mount it directly to the base unit so it stays put. The last bit of assembly is getting the wheel onto the wheelbase. Now, the instructions are not super clear on this, but let me help you. On top of this, you'll see a number of little lines, and hopefully you can see that. See if I can get that to the camera, you can see. There's a number of little lines and there's one long line there. And you'll find that that actually matches with these. So that's how you know that everything's in alignment. The other way is there's a series of ball bearings inside here, and you'll see that there's a small flat section on each side here. So what we're gonna do is grab this slip collar, showing it from the side here. We're gonna slide that back and hopefully simply slip it right into place and release, and just like that, it is locked in place. Turtle Beach is releasing this across the world, so you'll find that there's actually 3 different power plugs inside the box. We're going with the North American one because, well, I'm in North America, but it is nice that they included all 3, so whatever you happen to need for your particular setup, it's included. Now, it is nice of them to include all the power cables to make things for driving on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, but what about the rest of it? Well, there is a mount system on this opposite side if you'd like to move the VCU, and for the pedals, you can move this center pedal to the left or to the right with a simple adjustment down here, and that will make it set up for European driving or American driving. Just like the VelocityOne rudder pedals, you can adjust the overall spring tension with this little small spinning wheel here. You can adjust it to be easier to push or a lighter push. If you happen to be very heavy-footed, you can adjust that here, or you can also adjust it in the software inside the wheel. Now the more interesting part is this tune load cell brake here, the dynamic brake tech. This piece here is all about the immersion. What this is, the harder you push this pedal, the harder you're going to brake in the game. And obviously that has a lot to do with your driving style. If you want to brake very hard, well, you're going to push very hard. Or if you want to feather the brake, well, you can do that too. If you want to try and kick the rear end out with a slight tap, that's all done here as well. So this particular piece is really one of the major components of these pedals, and it really is a game changer. I've used these on other wheels before, and honestly, once you do it, you can't go back. So it's awesome to see it included here on these pedals. If you aren't mounting it permanently, Turtle Beach has included a set of kind of spiky rubber feet, as well as some flat rubber feet that you can place into these little spots, mix and match as you see fit. And that's meant to stick on like a wooden surface to help this grip the ground. Obviously the other option are these 4 screw holes that I mentioned for mounting it to some sort of permanent fixture. That covers keeping the pedals in place, but how do we keep this in place? Well, we're gonna bring out our trusty adjustment tool again. We're gonna use the big one. Inside these wings, as I mentioned, there is an adjustment screw there. We're going to lower that. Oh, that's tight. All right. And what you'll see as I do this is it's going to open up this little arm down here, and there's a matching one on the side. So that's going to allow me to mount this to a wooden table or something similar. Obviously I have the same option as I did on the pedals, where I can use the screws on the bottom to lock it in place. But more than likely, this is how I'm going to mount it to a table very similar to the one that we're looking at right now. One of the fun questions that comes up when you're reviewing a steering wheel is just how much steering wheel do you have? Well, all the steering wheel. This thing does not have any sort of stopping point whatsoever, so you are free to spin this as much as you'd like, which will inevitably cause you to crash and explode. So, enjoy. Now the last stop on the tour is obviously the dessert, and that's going to be force feedback. That's really the allure of this device. It has 7.2 Newton meters of force feedback. Now, how much is that? Well, I can't really describe it for you on camera, so I'm gonna have to show you when we play some games later. But that's what this button here is for K-Drive. When you click that, it's going to enable the force feedback functions of this device and bring it to life. So as I said, there's really no way to describe it. There's only really experiencing it. So let's get this hooked up to my PC and do exactly that. All right, the wheel's all wired up and I've kind of tamed the cables. I'll probably do a better job of that later, but for now, let's race. So we're gonna hold in the Xbox button down here and we'll see it come to life. It's asking me to select which platform, so Xbox or PC. We're gonna be on PC, so we're gonna select PC. As you might expect. I can hear Windows coming to life as it detects all the devices. And I think we're actually all set up. So now comes the fun part. Let's go check on firmware. As you can see here, we're on firmware 1.01. So now we're going to open up the software and see what firmware is current. Jumping over to the Turtle Beach support page, under their download section, we see VelocityOne Race. We'll click on that. I'm running Windows 11, but you have other options. We'll click where it says website, which is going to carry you to the App Store, where we'll click download. I'm not crazy that it's an app, but I kind of understand why it is. The 2.2 star rating, it's probably a carryover from other pieces of hardware that have had trouble with firmware updates, but I'm glad to say that where I had issues with the VelocityOne flight yoke, I had no problems with the VelocityOne HOTAS. So it seems like they're kind of ironing out the problems that they've had with firmware updates. So we should see that number come up. hopefully we're going to have that same experience with the VelocityOne race. After what seems like forever for that to download, here we go. It immediately sees that the VelocityOne race is connected, so that's a good start. And it sees that we're on firmware version 1.0.1, and we did see that there are updates available, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Let's check out this guide just to make sure we don't botch this on the way through. Connected to match the diagram. Yep. Make sure your hardware is set to the correct input mode. Yep. Updates will be handled in two parts. Part one will update the firmware on the system modules. It'll take approximately 5 minutes. I will speed that up for you. Part two will deal with the graphical user interface of the RMD. This update will take approximately 20 minutes. I will definitely skip that for you. And do not minimize or click off this app, disconnect the product, adjust the controls, power down your system during an update. If you do, bad things will happen. So let's do it. So it's suggesting that I disconnect the pedals. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'm gonna click begin update in just a moment. Pedals are disconnected. Begin update. Super begin. Yes, go. That's one down. Back into the firmware. We're going to refresh the firmware. It is, all right, so we're not going to refresh it. There we go. Installed version is 1.2. That's what we wanted, but looks like the UI, the one that'll take 20 minutes, we're going to go ahead and hit begin update, and that's going to take a minute. So I will definitely skip this part for you. Be right back. Now that we've got the firmware updated, let's take a look at what we've updated. So right now we're using profile 1. You can see the wheel as I turn it. You can see on the screen that it's having an obvious effect, and this gets much harder to turn the further you turn. I can adjust that, and we'll get to that in a minute. We've got the right and left paddle, which in this case is switching between the items at the top, so it's effectively the left and right bumper right now. Then below that, we have right paddle and the clutch and left paddle. So there's 65,538 positions for that. And then I'm gonna reach down here and press the rightmost pedal, and that is the throttle. Same thing, 65,538 positions. Leftmost pedal, which is the clutch, same thing. And then the brake. The brake requires almost no travel whatsoever. All that's, again, adjustable. We'll get to that in a minute. Then we see there are a number of buttons throughout here. You can see that's RS minus, RS2 minus, RS2 plus. Same thing on this, right side 1 and 2, plus, Y, X, B, A, right trigger, left trigger. Down here we have a D-pad, up, down, left, right. And then we have select and back over here. We've got this turn, which you can see on the screen back here. We're using to move through the different buttons here, so we'll get to that stuff later, but platform, profiles, K-drive, RMD, buttons, wheel, pedals, paddles, headset mixer, lighting, app link, and system. And then on this side, same thing, we see that E1 plus and minus. That's all the buttons here. Now let's jump over here. We have this sidecar here, this VelocityOne control unit. So that's going to turn off the power to everything. I don't want to hit that. Same thing with the K-drive, that's going to turn off all the internals. D3, we see that on the screen, D3 plus and minus. As I mentioned, these have little detents, so there's another very tactile feel as you kind of adjust these things. You see that D2 plus and minus, and then D1 plus and minus. This master arm, you see that toggle there. And then we see these pop up T2, T3, 4, and 5. These are all mappable. I'm sure based on the particular game in question, these will have specific functions. We'll get back to that when we actually start playing some games.
Jumping back over here. See if I can adjust this just a little bit so you can see over the wheel a little better. We're going to zoom in just a bit. So as I mentioned, you can jump into the different profiles and stuff. If you start selecting multiple profiles, you can very easily switch between them without having to exit and go to any software to do that. Apologize, this thing keeps wanting to adjust the focus there. My apologies. K drive. So this is the amount of power and strength that you're going to get from force feedback. The center spring and damping. So that's going to be how hard it is to turn the wheel. And again, all of this can be adjusted. Stop it. All this can be adjusted on the fly, so you don't have to jump out of your game to do that. RMD. So that is the telemetry that you get here. And you can make all sorts of adjustments, inside out, outside in, from left to right, right to left. So you can adjust all these, depending on the race car you're racing, that may or may not be useful. Output style, road, sport, or race. Again, if you're talking about rally versus F1, those are gonna be very different. Live output, well, it's waiting for something to actually play. Aren't we all? Buttons, this is again, being able to map the buttons. Those are these buttons over here on the sidecar, the control unit. So we can map these. Right now, they're currently not mapped to do anything in specific. Switching profiles, adjusting K drive, but all these are mappable just like they were on the HOTAS or the flight yoke. Again, my apologies, this just will not stay focused. All right, wheel, rotation, and dead zone. Right now, you can see on the screen, this is calibrated to 0 already. I went ahead and did that before we got started. But if you had a problem with this was, maybe drifting slightly out, you can adjust that in here, or you can adjust it in the app. Rotation. If you want to adjust the amount of rotation, right now 900 degrees, obviously that's 900 degrees in one direction, 900 degrees in the other direction. You can tighten that up some, so maybe it doesn't quite go as far. Depending on how wild you are on the wheel, maybe you'll want to tighten that up. That's a personal preference thing. Pedals, same thing. You can adjust the dead zone here. Right now, all of my pedals are set to 0, so we are good there. Same thing with sensitivity, clutch, brake, throttle. All of that can be adjusted, and you'll see that in the profiles when we get into that as well. But they can be adjusted on the fly. Paddles, same thing. Mapping and dead zone. So you can adjust what the particular paddles do. In this case, the left is the clutch, and the right is a handbrake. Dead zone, again, if you're having problems where they're slightly off, or they're just, holding onto the brake when they shouldn't, or something like that, or the clutch is slightly engaged, you can go in here and adjust that. Headset mixer. So we're talking about a company that focuses on audio. So naturally, they've included all of that inside this wheel, just like they did with the HOTAS and just like they did with the flight yoke. All of that is mapped in here, and you gain all the advantages that you would plugging in a regular headset. Obviously, they would much prefer that you plug in theirs, but in here you can adjust signature sound, bass boost, voice boost, superhuman hearing. That's going to adjust the center channel, mute the mic gain, mic monitoring, chat mix, and volume. These are normally things that you see on a really high-end headset. It's nice that they're mixed directly into the hardware here. I really appreciate that. This is one that they could have left out and they didn't, and it's certainly something to tweak when you're playing. If people are saying that you're talking too loud or whatever, you can jump in here without having to exit your game, make adjustments, and keep back on the road. Lighting, so this does have a number of lights all over it. I'm going to move the focus here. So you see the A and B button here on the right. You can see we're changing the colors. So if you have a particular color that you like, maybe like red, maybe like purple, whatever that happens to be. And it does also adjust over here. When we make adjustments, you will see that those colors change over here as well. So whatever works for you, you can make that adjustment in here and then lock it in. And if you don't like it, well, you can change it in the app, or you can simply adjust it on the fly in here. That's cool. Brightness, obviously, if you're in a really dark room and this thing's really bright, you might want to adjust that on the fly. And then effects, you've got effects that you can adjust, like breathing or cycling through colors. If you own a mouse that's been made in the last 10 years, you know exactly what these are. App link, there is an app that you can use on your phone, so you'll be able to adjust things on a screen instead of having to go into the app. We're not doing that today, but you would do that pairing here. And then system, this is where you can do a lot of the things that we were just doing, such as adjusting screen timeout. If you don't want this to time out after a period of time, you can adjust that in here and say, I'd like that to never happen, or I want that to happen after 7 minutes of idle, or whatever you want that to be. That's adjustable in here. Screen brightness, calibration, firmware updates, calibration. That's giving you the same calibrations that you see on your screen right now, except you don't have to have the app up to do it. So again, you're talking functionality that I would have expected to be only in the app, but because they've got this great screen here, they've given you that option to do it on the fly. All right, I think we've belabored this point enough. It is time to play some games. Oh, I guess I should touch on this. This is compatible with both Xbox and PC, so if you are wanting to play games on either platform, you simply have to go in there and adjust the option, and then you're good to go. So now let's shut up and actually race. I am tired of looking at menus. I'm sure you are too. Let's get in a car. All right, so we're gonna fire up Forza Motorsport 7. And I'm happy to say that, as you can see, I'm able to use the controls right out of the box. I really didn't need to set up anything, but if you want to take a quick look, here, I'm using the pedals as my left and right bumper, and input immediately recognized Turtle Beach VelocityOne race, and I was able to map the controls that you see there very easily. You simply press a button, press whatever control I wanted, and it was ready to go. So I don't know why I'm using the keyboard. I don't need to. So we're just going to jump straight into a race. I went ahead and made a racer, but it's just the default. And we're going to jump right into the Builders Cup. It's literally just the first real intro to racing. I've not selected any of the controls that would be complicated. This is really just, does the force feedback work the way that we expect, and what's it like to drive? So we're going to skip all of the background on the car, because there's going to be plenty of work to do here. We're going to jump straight into practice, which is going to give us the best feel for what it's like to drive. This is a definite 2-foot experience. So I'm going to have 1 foot on the brake and 1 foot on the accelerator, and we're going to jump straight into racing, I believe, right now. Oh, first, an explanation of what is practice, in case you're confused what practice is. The fact that this isn't skippable, well, I've seen it entirely too many times. Don't make things unskippable, folks. All right, here we go. And the force feedback is immediate. So the car does fight you when you're doing things that you shouldn't. Like if I'm going off there, it obviously pushed me around quite a little bit to get back on the track. And if I go into a corner too fast, if I don't brake enough, I might be fighting the roll of the vehicle. R-O-L-L, not R-O-L-E. And obviously any of the obstacles that I hit, or if I hit another car, I'm definitely going to feel that. Admittedly, I did drive this practice area twice just to make sure that I had at least a little bit of a feel and I wasn't a complete idiot on the course. So I've got a little bit of practice here. Wouldn't say I'm a great driver by any stretch, but I'm doing okay. I still have the assists turned on, and you can see that I'm not using the paddle shifters. At some point I'll need to enable that, but like I said, this is mostly just a demonstration of the force feedback. Man, this thing is powerful. Right at the very end, when I know that I've passed the test, I'll let go and you can start to see just how much the wheel does whip. I highly encourage you at least wait for that part of this video. It's a thing. Alright, so I hit the targeted lap time. If you are unfamiliar with the rules of racing, one of the most crucial ones is that you never brake into a corner. You want to accelerate into corners, you want to brake on straightaways. The reason being, unless your intention is to drift, braking into a corner is a great way to break free the pavement, and then suddenly you've lost control of the car. So you want to try and limit the amount of braking that you do into a turn. So you'll brake up to the turn, you'll bleed off speed by leaving off the accelerator, but for the most part you don't want to brake into a corner. Similar to what I talked about when I was flying using the flight yoke, there's a concept of kind of stepping on the ball. Now obviously we don't have the ball here, but in this case the ball is the forward and rear weight of the vehicle. When you lean into the vehicle, which is to say, when you brake, the weight of the vehicle shifts to the rear. Shifts forward. So when you're turning left and you're braking, you're moving the weight in a specific direction. And so you want to kind of learn how braking affects the overall physics of the vehicle and learn how to take advantage of that to make sure that you've got maximized contact between the tires and the pavement. All of that to say, it's a lot more complicated than it looks. Even something like NASCAR that we make fun of as just simply going left is a lot more complicated than it looks, because there's a lot more control required when a vehicle has 1,000 horsepower plus. A simple mistake like putting the weight of the vehicle in the wrong spot can wreck the day. All right, check this out. You immediately see how crazy that can get. All right, so this is an absolute blast, and as I said, it worked right out of the gate, so that's awesome. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on each racing platform, so we're going to jump right from Forza into our next thing, and that'll happen right about now. All right, jump into Wreckfest. I have never played this game, no clue what it's going to be like, so I jumped into what seemed like the best vehicle possible for this. Let's go. Okay, right out of the gate, that is a lot of force. Oh, just fighting the road. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, this is gonna be entertaining. Every time you hit something, the wheel is just like, yeah, how about no? So it's just 4 laps, but I just don't think all 24 of us are going to make it through. Yeah, driving this vehicle is exactly as awful as you might expect it to be. Oh, I'm seeing the camera up above just whipping around. So I apologize in advance for whatever this is going to end up looking like. Once again, I'll reiterate, mount this thing to something sturdy, because 7.2 Newton meters of force is a lot. Holy crap, is it a lot. But, oh, does it completely change the dynamics of a game like this. Holy smokes. Oh, this is so much fun in a way that I just never expected. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but I'm certainly having a blast. Hey, I'm in 12th position, so I guess that's something. And I am playing it obviously with all the assists and bells and whistles turned on, so I'm not having to clutch or shift or anything else. All that's automatic. But this is more about the experience of of being thrown around by this wheel. Holy crap, man! I think back to the force feedback wheels that I had back in the day from like the likes of Microsoft, and they were more just vibrating. They weren't certainly doing this. Holy smokes, this is a lot of power. Oh, I lost a position. All right, we're heading into our last lap here in just a second. Let's give this guy a broadside. Hello, sir. All right. Yeah, we're not going to come in first, but at least we're not coming in last. Cars are starting to pile up, so if I can just dodge my way through here, I might pick up a position or two. Oh my god, those whoop-de-doos are crazy with this wheel. And I am certainly ripping off my front right tire. Oh, bad timing. Always happens on the last lap, right? Front left wheel damaged, you don't say. Hey, Sephiroth the Incarnate. Congratulations, buddy. Congratulations on your stunning victory. Oh, well, hey, look at that. I took somebody out. Oh my goodness, this car is so hard to drive now. It was hard before, but now the wheel's trashed. That front left wheel is toast. This thing's just throwing me all over the place. Oh man. Finished in more ways than one. That was completely insane. And so much fun. So, as I said, I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on any one particular game, so let's jump on to the next one. But wow, that was just completely nuts. Next up on the list is Grid Legends, another game that I've never played, but I went ahead and fired it up. I've got all of my bindings set here. I obviously have not done everything, but enough to get rolling. And I went ahead and enabled something that we talked about earlier, which is the telemetry. This is live telemetry that you'll see down here. In here, you can see my RPMs, how fast, how much of a delta between me and my next person in front of me, my fuel, my battery life, as well as 4 indicators for my tires, what gear I'm in, what position I'm in, and all that's done in real time directly from the game, pulled directly into the race wheel. So that's pretty cool. Not every game supports it, but there is like a little add-on app that goes with the controls, and you simply have to enable it on a per game basis and then select with this little wheel down here your live telemetry, and then it'll sync up and off you go. So we're going to go ahead and, yep, I'm well aware that we changed steering devices. As you can see, it did select it as a VelocityOne race, so at least it does recognize that we are going to be using that. So here we go. Resume. So I don't know that we actually have any control right now. This is meant to be like a story section. Yeah, you can see there's a little slash through it, so it's saying I don't have access to the game quite yet. This is basically after a huge wreck. It's a story mode. And here we go. Oh my god. Okay. That's a little fast. Yeah, so this is a lot faster than other games that we've played so far. So I'm going to have to get used to that. It is set to automatic for the clutch again. Just getting used to the game might take a minute if I've got a car left after all this. Yeah, this is a hell of a lot faster. It doesn't look like the force feedback is working, but I did see an option in there, so I might just need to tweak that and just... and it looks like the telemetry data is not working correctly either. That's on a per game basis, so that's not really a big surprise. Looks like there's a lot of dead zone here too. So the point with all that just being, not every game is going to support the wheel right out of the gate, and certainly some features might need some work. In this case, force feedback is just non-existent. But I am racing, and everything else is working as intended. So at least I can get out here and get the wind in my hair, so to speak. And then after the race, I'll be able to go and tweak it for the next race. But it does make a big difference. That force feedback experience is a whole different kettle of fish. This is much easier without having to fight the wheel, of course. So I'm able to adapt, even though I've bounced off the walls like a pinball. I'm still able to adapt, and I'm learning the controls, and I'm able to make up positions here. I'm already jumping up to 8th, soon to be 7th. Definitely the rubbing is racing philosophy. So, yeah, 6th place. Look at that. Achievement earned, the accident. It's an accident that I even got that close to 1st place. So, that's Grid Legends. As I said, you'll have to tweak some of the settings to make it work exactly as intended, but at least it does function, and I can eventually get it to where it needs to be. So, on to the next. Next on the list, we're going to slow it way down. This is American Truck Simulator. I've gone ahead and configured the VelocityOne race. It's the same sort of thing where it's just a matter of hitting the pedals and hitting the right directions to make it all work. Really easy to configure. We're going to jump directly into the game as soon as I can figure out where to do that. Continue. There we go. I would like to give a shout out to my father-in-law. He has over 1 million miles in a truck, and all safely, mind you. So I'm going to try and do him proud. I have every intention and probably not the skill. So we're going to click career. I've managed to do 2 deliveries. Nope, sorry, 1 delivery. And I am a level 1 peon. So we're going to grab a job, and we're going to say sort by, let's see. I guess we'll just go by price. So this is what? Trying to figure out how many miles this is. Not very familiar with the interface. What can you do? Alright, we'll just select this one. 226 miles. Alright, so let's try and find a nice short run. You know, like a tutorial-y kind of run. Alright. 163 miles, 129, 101. Alright, 101 miles, just like the Dalmatian. Take the job. I have delivery pending. Okay, I guess we'll go do that. I don't know what I'm doing. We're trying to deliver some frozen vegetables. Alright, so I went ahead and got the telemetry working on this. I don't know if you can see that very well. We'll see. Yeah, you should be able to see that. But I've got the speed, my RPMs, battery fuel. It's the same sort of information, except... oh, that's right. I had jackknifed the vehicle. That's what we were doing here. Oh my. Okay, well that's not probably the intention. We're not reviewing the game, so don't pay any attention to that. But we're going to straighten back out and get back on the road. But you can see it is pulling the live telemetry data. You can see up there at the top, you've got these green lights that are indicating kind of the time to shift. At least that's what I think it is. And then you've got my RPM indicator, which indicates when I will shift. My speed, battery, I'm not sure what that has to do with a gas-powered vehicle, but my battery is 16. And then I've got my fuel gauge, of course. Lap time, I think that's more time of day in this particular case, because I'm not really dealing with laps. Yeah, it says 5:40 and, well, no. I have 5 hours and 40 minutes. So that's my expiry time. This is the amount of time it's expecting me to be on the road. Obviously, we're talking a very different experience here. I did map... Oh, hello. A cop car. Let's not anger the police. I did map the ability to look around. This can be played in VR, which is kind of cool. Oh, let's not bounce off the road. Let's get back in the cockpit here. Oh, you definitely feel that when you go over the sleepy, I don't know what those things are called, the noisemakers on the side of the road. We are going 120, I'm not sure if that, I think it's kilometers in this case. And that cop's still going faster than us. All right. Yep, 74 miles an hour. So 117 kilometers. I guess I'd have to adjust that if I want that in freedom units. This cop not going to do anything about me going Yep, speeding violation. 980 bucks. Crossing the gore point. I mean, we're just gonna do all the crime. We're gonna take this on-ramp going entirely too fast. Trailer damage. Spinning around, up on 2 wheels. Yeah, my father-in-law would not be impressed. But hey, I am using my turn signal. I don't know how to turn off the windshield wipers, but I am certainly using my turn signals. You can map these controls down here, so I could actually map my things like my steering or my windshield wipers to these little toggle switches down here. It's just a matter of taking a second to map them. Obviously, you know, we're kind of playing this tongue-in-cheek, but if you were taking this seriously, you would certainly spend the time to map the controls and set it up for things like disconnecting the trailer and certainly turning off the windshield wipers, being able to hit your different communication things. You could map all of that sort of thing and make it very, very functional. I have seen panels that you can add to make this a very realistic trucking experience where you'd have like a whole side panel for all those sorts of things. You know, if you're so inclined, that's certainly an option. Obviously, I've not tested those, so, you know, giant asterisk next to what I just said, but it seems like a reasonable thing that should work. After all, they are simple, just button mapping inputs. Alright, after I loop around this corner like a madman, we'll switch it up to the next game. But you can see there's a lighter touch on force feedback here. The truck is certainly fighting me as I go around that corner way too fast. And as I go over things like the gore point, I'm certainly getting some feedback. So if you're into the over-the-road trucking, which, you know, hey, good on you. It's just like pilots who like to fly a real flight from here to there. This is really the same thing. This is carrying kind of the lifeblood of what makes all of our commercial products and goods and services possible, and doing that in real time and kind of taking a moment to appreciate the hard work that people put in to make all of that possible, you know. So enough of that soapbox. This is this is another rabbit hole that you can certainly fall down. If you take a look at the DLC for this particular game, it's a very long list. So that's American Truck Simulator. We're gonna go ahead and park in the middle of the highway like a good responsible person and move on to the next game. Jumping over to F1 2022, there isn't a profile available for the heads-up display here, but that doesn't stop you from actually using it. If you use the one for 2023, it works just fine. We should see that reflected in the telemetry when we actually get out and racing, but you'll see it is different. So this is the race setup. So I've got a number of new indicators, but you also see the usual ones: RPM, position, lap, speed, best lap, delta, time elapsed, etc., and also red flags. So if you are committing some grievous sins, such as maybe, I don't know, driving over the edges of things, well, that's going to cost you, and you'll see that reflected here. Again, there isn't a default profile for this. That doesn't mean that there won't be for 2024. That comes out in less than a month from the time of recording. So there's a chance that this will have a default mapping, but that said, it did map perfectly without a problem. I was able to just go in and map each button as I saw fit and just simply get to work after that. So I did do the first race just to see how it goes. And yeah, it's fun. This is definitely a two-footed racer kind of game. So okay, so yeah, I was able to load the profile, but I'm not seeing that real-time data here. So yeah, it looks like you kind of miss out if you don't have the profile. Oh boy, yeah, came up on them awful quick. The race that I did for practice was the test lap with nobody else on the track. So this will be interesting. Certainly a jump from the over-the-road truck racing to Formula One. These are a little bit faster. Yeah, just a little bit. I know there are some rules that I'll definitely be breaking around how you overtake. You're supposed to indicate that you intend to overtake, and then you know, maybe not run into people. Yeah, and you can certainly take penalties if you cut the corner like I just did. Oh, I just knocked something off my desk. Again, very powerful force feedback. Yeah, Formula One has a lot of rules around how you're allowed to overtake and how much you're allowed to deviate from the track before you start taking penalties. And obviously they can't just, you know, make you drop back. So what happens is they take that off at the end. You know, you might take a 2-second penalty, and even though you may have come in a better position, you may drop a position because they're going to throw 2 extra seconds on your overall time having cut a corner. Yeah, his lap time's a hell of a lot faster than mine, but I'm not too far off. I'm a 1.5 seconds away from For Sure, who just had his best lap time. So I'm not too far off. I think I'm holding my own. I'm in 20th place out of 22nd, which could be worse, but I'm certainly not seeing the back of the track. There's that 2-second penalty and illegal overtake. Yeah, so they're saying cede the position or receive a penalty, so I could drop back and lose that position, but I'll take the penalty. 3-second time, yeah, that might hurt me a little, but for obvious corner cutting, I have to be more subtle about my cheating. Yeah, with F1, that rubbing is racing idea is a no-go. These things will snap real quick. When these things break, it is catastrophic. So you got to really be mindful about how much you hit other racers and how much damage you take, because it can be game over real fast. You're also talking about cars that go hundreds of miles an hour, so that's not a huge surprise. Oh, that was not smooth, but oh man, I gotta get better on that corner. But I'm doing all right. I'm at 17th. My penalties aren't too terrible. Hopefully I can. Nope. Yeah, I gotta do better than that. If I keep out of the sand, that would be a good start. Yeah. I just ceded that position. That sucks. Yeah, you're certainly getting a workout when that force feedback hits. You're fighting for control for sure. You're definitely feeling it. Now, I've never driven a Formula One car. Funny enough, my wife actually has. So I'll have to have her drive and have her tell me how it feels. But it seems pretty intense. And I imagine it's got to be close to the real thing. I know that drivers are now using good force feedback wheels and setups for simulating track time, so there's got to be something to it. Boy, this 16th position seems like it's a mile away. Just not making up the time. Well, that certainly doesn't help. Almost made a pit stop in another race, for crying out loud. Yeah, I'm a long way away from not having to need the guidance and the assists. This is certainly a level of skill that I don't have quite yet. Ah, man, come on. This guy's been in my pocket the whole time. Now as we come into the final lap, he's gonna really be fighting me. On get. Not getting a lot of encouragement from my my pit crew either. He just said basically keep your head on straight and go to work, and then left me to my devices. Guess he figures he can't salvage this race any more than I can. Yeah, you can really feel that that enhanced braking. It's just there's so much granularity to the controls. You really could lose yourself in just the steering wheel, but that would really be neglecting just the amount of granularity and strength there is in the pedals too. That's 65,535 positions. You certainly are making use of it when you're feathering your brakes and your gas this much, like you do in these cars. At least if you're doing it well, which I don't know that I'm demonstrating that, but I'm certainly trying. All right, coming up on our last lap here. All right, I did better that time than I have probably in the last 4 laps. Don't know that it's going to make a difference. This might be my lot. 17th place. Yep, final lap. Plus penalties. Don't forget penalties. Still might end up losing that position if I can't get at least 3 seconds of time. I don't think that's going to happen. There'd have to be like a final destination sort of explosion on the track for me to get anywhere close to not losing probably all of my positions and ending up at the back of the pack. But surprisingly, I actually don't care. It's fun, so I don't actually care that I'm in last place. I can do better next time, maybe. It'll be fun to try either way. Alright, we're in the back half. Alright, I did better that time, so I guess I'm making some improvements. Yeah, that was much better. Well, Yuri just won. So, good for you, I guess. Alright, final stretch. The checkword flag. That's that. So yeah, very much a different experience compared, all the way to 22nd. That sucks. A very different experience, obviously, than driving a long haul truck. So let's make one last stop and close all this out. Oh my God, these dead-eyed people. That is, oh yikes. Yeah, enough of that. All right, I lied. It's actually going to be 2 stops. So this one's going to be Assetto Corsa Competizione. I'm sure I butchered that. But Assetto Corsa is one of the ones that's on the must-play list. So I jumped into this one and set it up really quickly. You can see that I've mapped a couple of things. Let's go ahead and put that cycle wiper in there. We're going to make use of one of these switches. Maybe. There we go. All right, so now I can cycle my windshield wipers. Very important. Let's jump into a race. We're just gonna jump into a single player, and I guess we'll drive the Nürburgring, maybe? I think that's what it said. We'll just jump. Yep, Nürburgring. In a Lamborghini. Only good things can happen. Gonna jump right into... Oh, yeah, gotta put this one in gear. Gotta actually do it for realsies. So hold on, we're gonna pause for just a second. You'll notice that this isn't updating, so I'm gonna go ahead and I don't know if this will show up on my screen or not, but I'm gonna Alt-Tab and try and bring up the utility to set this up. It's simply scrolling to the right item in here, selecting it, saying check config, and you'll notice that it did just update. So now we should have that direct input right to this HUD, so you can watch me suck in real time. But there we go. Now you can actually see the same thing that's on the wheel for real is now on here as well. I probably should spend more time watching where I'm going than watching the wheel. It is kind of daunting to, oh my God, jumping between all these different vehicles and all these different racing games. They all have very different control schemes. It's not just as simple as grab the wheel and go. So some of this is certainly just me being terrible at the racing game, but it's also got a little bit to do with kind of learning the quirks of each one of the cars and how much oversteering you can do and how much hell and aggravation you get for ending up in the dirt. What you will notice though is the tire conditions. So my tire conditions, depending on which HUD I use, I'd be able to see that tire condition in real time on the wheel itself. Oh my God, this is some great driving. But I'll be able to keep an eye on. You can see that I'm starting to do some damage to that left front. But over time I'll lose PSI, and I'll have to eventually make a, wow, okay, lost control. I'll have to make a pit stop to swap out my tires, because eventually they're just not going to be any good. Turns out driving a Ferrari, fairly difficult. Who knew? I guess all the people that are on Reddit and you get to see them wreck their car 2 seconds into owning it, they probably knew. At least they did afterwards. Now, one thing that does excite me is the thought of playing these games with VR. The force feedback, VR, plus these incredible graphics. As long as my brain will handle being in VR like that, which I think it would, then that's just going to be just a game changer. The immersion of the wheel plus the immersion of VR, that's just crazy talk. It's something I already do with Flight Simulator. It's just a whole different experience being in VR, and I just imagine that's the same way with the VelocityOne race, being able to experience this in VR. Alright, I'm starting to get the hang of it, I think. Now I say that and I'm probably going to wreck as a result, but I seem to recall something about the Nürburgring being so big that when you race the full circuit, that it can be raining on one side of the Nürburgring and be dry as a bone on the other side. So it makes it really hard to select what type of tires, because if you select dry tires and then you end up on that portion of the track that's wet, well, you're gonna have problems. And if you go with wet tires and it's dry, well, now you're gonna wear your tires down much faster. So this track is a particularly challenging one, if memory serves, which I think it does. So I guess if you can afford to drive the Nürburgring, you probably aren't worried about the cost of tires. Just a matter of whether they stick, which, hey, when you're off-roading like I am, what difference does it make? While we drive here, I'm going to try and do this while I'm trying to concentrate. The experience will cost you a little bit. The experience of this wonderful force feedback and just the overall... Okay, back under control. The overall cost for all of this will run you $650 US. I've not seen any sales yet, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. This is still a fairly new product, so I imagine we'll see, Toyotathon type pricing at some point, where you can jump in and pick it up for maybe $50 off or something like that. For me, I'm a sim junkie, so the cost of it's something like a HOTAS or adding rudder pedals or just these pieces of equipment, I think about the amount of enjoyment that I get out of the added immersion, and it makes it worth it for me. Obviously, that's going to be a judgment call for you, but if you're watching this, I suspect you may have already made that decision for yourself. Hey, I did better on the corner. I'm trying to do this from memory, not having the website in front of me, so I may have to do an on-screen correction, but I believe that this has a 3-year warranty for everything, so should something go wrong, you've got that. As a test, I did open a ticket. I was having some issues with Forza Horizon 5, trying to get that mapped, and so I did reach out to support, and I did not identify myself as a member of the press or anything like that, so it should approximate what your experience is. And they got back to me within like 6 hours and offered me some suggestions on how to fix a different game. Instantly, I was having some issues with WRC, which is our next game, where the instructions on how to map the throttle controls were very unclear, and Turtle Beach was able to walk me through how to do that properly, and they got it in one. They didn't give me some generic, copy and paste thing. The technician read what I was running into and got back to me with some real solid instructions, and I had it fixed in an instant. So that speaks volumes. You're definitely talking to people who know how to troubleshoot their own product. They're not just copy and pasting boilerplate, so that's a good thing. So now I'm still working on Forza Horizon 5. I don't remember if that's on the supported list or not, but I'm trying to make it work because I just feel like that would make that kind of arcade racing so much more fun if I also had force feedback to go with it. But that support is ongoing, so you literally put in your serial number and then it connects to their ticket system and you're able to log a ticket. So it's nice to have that kind of support. So it looks like 3 years for that. I will confirm, and if there's a correction, I'll put it on screen. But really, that's the only con that I've run into. Everything about this has worked really well. The games that haven't supported it have certainly been few and far between. Even older titles that I've mapped to the wheel worked just fine. It just takes a second to map the controls, and you're off to the races. Newer games are supporting it natively, so like WRC has a profile that loaded instantly. The only problem that I ran into was I incorrectly calibrated it, so that's on me. So maybe F1 2024 will have native support. All these games just need a patch to be able to add that kind of support. So honestly, the only con I've run into is just that the price is a little steep. And when you see the engineering that goes into this, when you see the amount of power this thing has to throw you around and all the integrations that it has, like this on-wheel prompt here, you can start to see where that money is going. So, it's a con only insofar as, it's certainly a lot more expensive than a wheel without force feedback. But you've heard me giggle like a schoolgirl this whole time. If that's not worth the extra money, I don't know what is. So we're going to go ahead and button this one up. We were just doing free race, so I was kind of just practicing more than anything. So we're going to go ahead and put this into the wall and switch it up to WRC to close this out.
Unfortunately, my WRC footage was corrupted, but I think I made my point during the Assetto Corsa gameplay. While this setup is rather expensive at $649, the added immersion made games I'd never play suddenly not only appealing, but an absolute blast. They're arguably more accurate wheels, but every one of them is in the eye-wateringly high price range, and few have the backing of a big company like Turtle Beach for software compatibility, something we saw firsthand in the ongoing support for the VelocityOne HOTAS and Flight Yoke. We expect that most, if not all, the big names will support this device right out of the box going forward. Ultimately, I had a lot of fun with the VelocityOne race, something I think was pretty apparent in my non-stop laughing as I made this review. There's simply no going back. This is racing as I intend to enjoy it going forward. I'm Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for Gamingtrend.com. Let us know in the comments, do you play racing games with a controller, a racing wheel, or are you a complete psychopath and you drive with the keyboard? Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you again very soon.